I am so pumped today. I shot an 85 this morning. I mean, what do you do after a debate? You get up and play 18 and think about it. And I left 3 shots out there. It actually should have been an 82. That is my best round of the year. I'm kind of pumped about that. I don't think either candidate hurt themselves last night. I don't think anybody is going to make a stretch run here or a big jump in the polls in the next 48 hours. I think Trump, the first half hour, he did pretty well. He was in his wheelhouse. He was doing his tax and regulation thing and trade, and he got to trade right away. In fact, I was really surprised that he got to trade right away. And that's kind of the way the debate went right away on the economy, and he seemed to have pretty good command on it. But after the last hour, I just felt like Hillary had her sea legs. She let Trump hang himself numerous times. He got to a point where he was rambling a lot. And so I don't think I'm telling you anything you didn't see as a viewer. And there were 80 million of you out there. It's the largest viewing audience ever for a debate. And maybe it'll move somebody. I don't think so. I think it was first debate, and everybody knows there's 2 more to go. There was a lot thrown out. There was a lot that was not covered. You know, I thought there'd be at least some conversation about deplorable. I thought there'd be some conversation about the wall and illegal immigration. But listening to Trump all night long, all I heard was how bad America is and how he's going to make it great. There wasn't a lot of detail there. And I thought Hillary was steady as she goes, and I thought that she was much more focused on communicating, and she didn't get down in the gutter. Trump, when he was continually interrupting, I didn't think he did himself any favors. I was kind of aggravated. I wanted to hear what Hillary had to say. And she would not respond to his interruptions, which I think was very important, and I think it frustrated him to a point. Let's talk to Mitch Ceasar. He's a member of the DNC Executive Council, former Florida Democratic Party chair. Mitch, good to have you with us.
How are you, Ed?
Good, good. Florida's tight. And, of course, Trump was down in Florida today at Little Havana. What'd you think of last night?
I thought Hillary won. I don't think there was a knockout, but I think she won on points, and that seems to be the consensus. And what I find most interesting is everybody knows that Trump is somewhat shallow, shall we say, as most reality TV stars may be when they're not scripted. But what I found shocking is he's a smart guy. He's not a stupid guy. I knew Hillary was going to have to bait him to try to get the real Trump to come out. I can't believe how often he fell for the bait. That's what I found shocking, and the end result after the evening was...
Give me an example of that.
He wasn't the one looking presidential.
What do you mean? Give me an example of what he fell for.
Well, she started off very early talking about things like, well, I know your father gave you $14 million or something like that. You know he's going to respond to that, and he shouldn't. And, of course, like Pavlov's dog, he responded to it right away. She hit different trigger buttons, and he kept responding over and over again to her, again falling for the bait. And then he just did, split screen effect hurt him. If you look at the debate and you have it on mute, that would be an instructive lesson for him to use in reviewing his performance. And the constant interrupting. He just seemed like kind of a petulant child. What that does is it goes to the overarching issue that he's not presidential, but it also helps solidify for her, or maybe expand a little bit, believe it or not, because she needed expansion, is among Hispanics and African Americans, and certainly among millennials. They see those type of behaviors. They don't like that, those groups. So I think she solidified where she was going, but I think she expanded a little bit. And I'll tell you something, I'll make a prediction based on absolutely nothing. I will say there will be a bump in the polls. I'll predict a couple of points.
Okay. Taxes and emails. Here's the exchange.
I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted. As soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns, and that's against my lawyers. They say don't do it. I will tell you this. No, in fact, watching shows, reading the papers, almost every lawyer says you don't release your returns until the audit's complete. When the audit's complete, I'll do it. But I would go against them if she releases her email.
That was very Rovian. That's what Karl Rove taught George Bush to do. Attack where you're weak.
Right.
He knows that the American people would love to know what his connections are financially, and if he is really paying any federal tax at all. And I thought Hillary hit him pretty good on that. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, again, he made that stupid ad-lib comment about, like, when she started to say you didn't pay taxes, and he interrupted her and goes, well, that's because I'm smart. That's not going well with the middle class and people who are fighting to, get beyond to get to the 30 days to be able to make the bills at the end of the month, maybe only reach 25 days. What's interesting is I think Hillary learned a hard lesson from a few weeks ago and practiced it correctly. I think that's kind of a wash for both of them, but the difference was that it could have been better for him and worse for her, but she finally answered some of the questions, not lawyerly, but in short things like with the emails. She said, I made a mistake, I own it, there's no excuse, maybe it was 3 sentences, and she got out. No extended conversation by her, which frankly is a killer.
How do you think Trump handled the birther situation, reversing it back and blaming it on Hillary Clinton and Sidney Blumenthal and regurgitating the story that maybe it was the Clinton campaign that went after Barack Obama? Here's the exchange.
So he tried to put the whole racist birther lie to bed. But it can't be dismissed that easily. He has really started his political activity based on this racist lie that our first black president was not an American citizen. There was absolutely no evidence for it, but he persisted. He persisted year after year.
How do you think that played? And of course, he came back and said, well, it was your campaign that started it. What about that?
I don't think it helped him at all. I think it hurt him. And I would bet when you look at the focus groups, and there were several different media organizations that focus groups, I would bet that didn't do well. Because the bottom line is he's not only not coming in with clean hands, but the problem is the fact that he's just totally disingenuous.
Yeah.
That type of pitch by him, again, helps her with blacks and Hispanics, millennials who hate that kind of stuff, and I would venture to say moderate suburban women.
Sure.
So I would say that helped her with all those things. I frankly understand why he dragged it up, even a couple of weeks ago.
Sure. I want to go to another example of Trump attacking where he's weak. He has been, of course, painted by the Clinton people as not being presidential, and you, of course, believe that, and they've worked on his temperament. Here's Trump.
I have much better judgment than she does. There's no question about that. I also have a much better temperament than she has. I have a much better. Let me tell you, she spent hundreds of millions of dollars on an advertising. They get Madison Avenue into a room, they put names. Oh, temperament, let's go after. I think my strongest asset, maybe by far, is my temperament. I have a winning temperament. I know how to win. She does not know how to win.
Clinton.
Wait, the AFL-CIO the other day, behind the blue screen, I don't know who you were talking to, Secretary Clinton, but you were totally out of control. I said, there's a person with a temperament that's got a problem.
Secretary Clinton.
Woo, okay.
What about that, Mitch?
Well, first off, the last piece of that where she makes the noise and says, okay, I thought that was hysterical, show she's human. I thought that was actually a very funny kind of like break of the tension. The problem is it's exactly the opposite. First of all, he makes it all about him when he talks about the ads and you attacked me and I haven't done that and what a great guy I am. When you listen to a lot of his answers, it's always about him. It's never about the country, never about his future. What killed him was, in the same context of the question, was that his constant interrupting, sounding like a petulant child, those are the things that helped guarantee after the end of the night that he wasn't presidential. And, of course, the joke was where they were attacking her earlier in the month about fatigue and not up. He's the one who kind of folded the last hour of the hour and a half, and she's running along there.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like, melted away, as he actually did in a few of the debates when he had all those other people. And after the first initial hits, his problem was he's good at the beginning, but any follow-up questions, he fades. It all goes to not really preparation, just he can't change who he is. He's wired that way. The question was he disciplined enough not to fall for some of the moves by her? And he fell for everything.
Yeah. Final point. There's always a time in a debate where the candidate has to show a steady hand. I never sensed a steady hand with Trump last night, but there was a moment where I really sensed a steady hand with Hillary Clinton when she took a moment, almost talking as if she is the commander-in-chief. And I want to assure our allies that we will live up to our agreements. Trump did not have a moment like that. And it was almost as if, okay, folks, let's put all this bullshit aside. I'm just telling you how it's going to be if I'm president. We're not going to walk out on deals. We're not going to walk out on our alliances with people around the world. She talked up NATO properly and documented what NATO did in Afghanistan in fighting terrorism. And so there was a steady hand moment for Clinton last night, but I'm looking for one for Trump. Did you see one?
No, when she was, she had to tell the allies, and incidentally, the world markets, that she is consistent and reliable and steady. The market was down yesterday a fair amount, and they talked about the analysts because the debate was coming. They're fearful of him. She obviously did really well. The markets are up, triple figures today.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? As she explained also in that same context you're talking about, she said how words matter, and how words matter to our allies. And one little mistake, or to use Trump's term, one little joke, because that's his excuse for every goofy statement. It was a joke. You simply can't do that. You have to be a mature individual if you can be the leader of the free world. He didn't even come close to measuring up to that. She did more damage to him, partly by her steady performance and by his somewhat erratic performance. I don't think it was preparation. I think it's the fact that he should have been smart enough to fall for the bait. I cannot believe he did. I'm sure he won't the second debate. The question is, which Trump will we get next time? I think we'll get a more aggressive one.
The latest Suffolk University poll out of Florida shows that Trump is leading by just 45-44. You said there might be a 2-point move. Do you think there'll be some movement in Florida?
I do.
Okay. All right.
I do. I actually spoke to a few people called me today who are independents. Mm-hmm. Probably, and I mean real center of the road. One was a lady attorney, and one was a gentleman business person. They both called me and said after the debate they were absolutely voting for Hillary, without question.
Okay, Mitch Ceasar, great to visit. Always member of the DNC Executive Council. You're kind of our pulse of Florida, and I appreciate it so much. Thanks, Mitch.
My pleasure. Thanks, Ed.
You bet. Ed Schultz, News and Commentary, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. We're back tomorrow.